calling from a blocked number. I was half asleep, face down on the couch, TV still glowing with some late-night rerun I hadn't been watching. I almost ignored it. I wish I had. The second I answered, there was silence. Not normal silence either. It sounded like someone standing in a huge, empty room, breathing very softly. Then a woman whispered, "Jake?" I sat up. Her voice was low, calm, almost careful, like she was afraid of scaring me. "Who is this?" Another breath. Then she said, "You should lock the kitchen window." I froze. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. I lived alone, and 10 minutes earlier, while taking out the trash, I'd cracked the kitchen window because the place smelled like burned coffee. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't texted anyone. Nobody knew. I got up so fast my knee hit the coffee table. "Who is this?" I asked again, louder this time. But she didn't answer. She just said, "Please, Jake, go lock it." I ran to the kitchen. The window was still open 2 inches. Cold air slid in through the gap. Nothing else. No sign of anyone. No movement outside. Just the alley below and the orange glow of the street lamp. Hands shaking, I slammed it shut and locked it. When I put the phone back to my ear, she was still there. "Good," she said. My mouth had gone dry. "How do you know my name?" A pause, then, "Because I know you." Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. Not flirty, not playful, certain. I went to every room in the apartment after that. Closet, bathroom, under the bed, even though I knew that was stupid. Nobody was there. When I came back, the woman was still on the line. "I'm not trying to hurt you," she said. "Then tell me who you are." Another pause. "My name is Olivia." I waited for more. Nothing. "Okay," I said slowly. "Olivia who?" She ignored the question. "You still keep your spare key in that blue ceramic planter outside your door." I turned and stared at the entryway. Then I opened the door. The little blue planter was right where it always was. Cheap thing from a grocery store. Fake fern in it. And under the dirt, wrapped in plastic, was the spare key I'd hidden there 2 years ago. I had never told anyone about that. Not my coworkers, not my ex, not even my sister. I stepped back inside and locked the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What do you want?" Her voice softened. "I just wanted to hear you answer." That should have sounded sweet. It didn't. I stood in the dark kitchen, gripping the counter. "How did you get this number?" "I've had it for a while." "That's not an answer." "You changed carriers last year in August," she said, "but you kept the same number because your mom still forgets it sometimes." I felt cold all over. There are moments when fear doesn't hit you like a scream. It hits you like a door quietly closing behind you. That was one of them. Because she was right. My mother had memory problems, early stages. Some days were better than others. I hadn't told many people. Most of the people who knew were family, or had been family. "Are you watching me?" I asked. "No." "You expect me to believe that?" "I'm trying to help you." "With what?" A long silence. Then she said, "With what's coming." I laughed then, but it came out thin and wrong. "What is that supposed to mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Don't go to work tomorrow." Now I was angry. Fear turning into something easier to carry. "What kind of game is this?" "No game." "Then tell me what you mean." "Please don't go," she whispered. And then the line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone. No number, no trace. Just, call ended. I barely slept that night. Every sound in the apartment felt too loud. Pipes, fridge hum, footsteps from upstairs. I kept checking the peephole like I expected someone to be standing there. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself it was a prank. Almost. Then I got dressed for work. And right before I left, I looked down at the blue ceramic planter by the door. The dirt had been disturbed. Not a lot. Just enough to tell me someone else had touched it. That was the moment I should have called the police. Instead, I went to work. And that was my first mistake. Buildings. Water damage, fire damage, insurance jobs nobody wanted. Nothing exciting. That morning, though, everything felt wrong. I spilled coffee on my shirt before I left, missed the elevator at the office, dropped a folder in front of my boss. It was like my body knew something my brain didn't. Around 11, I was on site in an old apartment building on Mercer Street, checking cracked plaster in a vacant unit. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Blocked number. I stared at it. It stopped. Then it buzzed again. I answered on the third ring. What? Olivia exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. You went anyway. Yeah, I did. So if you're planning to tell me the sky is falling, now would be a great time. Leave the building. I rolled my eyes, but I'd already stepped toward the hallway without meaning to. Why? Jake. Why? And then I heard it, a groan above me, deep, heavy, like the building itself was shifting. I looked up. Cracks raced across the water-stained ceiling. Then a section of it came down. I jumped back just as a slab of plaster and wood exploded onto the floor where I'd been standing less than a second earlier. Dust filled the hallway. Something metal clanged. An old pipe burst overhead, spraying brown water across the walls. I stumbled, coughing, phone still to my ear. On the line, Olivia whispered, "Are you okay?" I couldn't speak. Workers came running from the stairwell. Somebody yelled for maintenance. Somebody else shouted that the top floor had partial collapse from hidden rot. I kept staring at the smashed floor. I should have been under that. Jake, Olivia said again. How did you know? No answer. Olivia, how did you know? She spoke quietly. Please go home tonight. Don't stop anywhere. Don't tell anyone about me yet. Tell anyone? Are you insane? I almost died. I know. You knew. A beat. Yes. The line went silent again, but this time she didn't hang up right away. I could hear her breathing, and underneath it, something else. Rain, or static, or traffic from very far away. Who are you? I asked, softer now. And for the first time, she sounded sad. You won't believe me if I tell you. Then the call ended. That should have been enough. Enough to run to the police. Enough to change my number. Enough to pack a bag and sleep somewhere else. But fear does strange things. When someone proves they can save your life, a part of you starts trusting them before you mean to. That afternoon, I lied to my boss and said I wasn't feeling well. I drove straight home, and for the first time in years, I noticed things I'd stopped noticing. The same dark sedan behind me threw 3 lights. A man in a gray hoodie standing across from my building, not smoking, not on his phone, just watching the entrance. By the time I parked, he was gone. Inside my apartment, everything was exactly where I'd left it, except for one thing. On the kitchen counter was a photograph. I knew instantly that it was mine, even though I'd never seen it before. It showed me asleep on this same couch, same blanket, same TV glow, same angle from the hallway. Taken from inside my apartment. My blood turned to ice. There was no note on the back, no message, no print mark, just the photo. I backed away from it like it might move, then my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered so fast I almost dropped it. Were you here? No. There's a photo in my kitchen. I know. You know? Listen to me carefully, she said, voice suddenly urgent. Do not call the police yet. I laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You've lost your mind. If you call them now, they'll talk to the wrong person. What wrong person? The silence this time was worse than an answer. Then she said, Your ex, Mara. Is she still using the silver Honda? I stopped breathing for a second. Mara and I had broken up 10 months earlier, badly. She'd moved out, changed jobs, changed her hair. Changed, apparently, nothing about how much damage she could do. How do you know Mara? Another pause. Then, because she's looking for you. A chill slid through me. That makes no sense. She thinks you took something from her. I didn't. I know. The room felt smaller. What is happening? You need to check your storage box. My what? The one in the hallway closet, top shelf, black latch. I turned slowly toward the closet. I'd had that plastic storage bin for years. Old papers, receipts, photos, stuff I never opened. My hands were trembling when I pulled it down. The latch snapped open. Inside, under a stack of tax forms, was a small velvet jewelry box. I had never seen it in my life. I opened it. Inside was a ring. Not expensive, but old. Dark stone, thin gold band. And underneath it, folded once, was a note. In handwriting I recognized immediately. Mara's. That's when I realized Olivia wasn't just calling with warnings. She was pulling me into something that had already started. Something I was somehow inside of, without ever knowing it. And that was before she told me the one thing that made everything worse. Jake, she said gently, Mara isn't the person you should be afraid of. I sat on the floor with the ring in one hand and the note in the other. My apartment felt contaminated, like every object in it had been touched by someone else, seen by someone else. Then who should I be afraid of? I asked. Olivia didn't answer right away. I could hear that same faint background sound again. Wind, maybe, or distant tires on wet pavement. Finally, she said, Do you remember a woman named Evelyn Cross? The name meant nothing at first. Then it hit me. 3 years earlier, my company had restored part of an old townhouse after a kitchen fire, one of those historic places near the river. The owner had been an older woman, quiet, rich. Strange, if I was being honest. She'd always seemed like she was listening to a conversation nobody else could hear. Evelyn Cross. Yeah, I said slowly. What about her? She died 6 months ago. I frowned. Okay. She left something behind, something people have been looking for. I looked at the ring in my hand. This? Yes. That made no sense. Why would it be in my apartment? Because Mara put it there. My head started pounding. Mara barely knew where I kept cereal, and you're telling me she snuck into my place to hide some random ring? It isn't random. Then what is it? Another silence. Then Olivia said, It belonged to Evelyn's daughter. And? And her daughter disappeared in 1998. The words settled over me like ash. I stood up too fast and started pacing. No, absolutely not. I'm not doing this. This sounds like some true crime podcast written by a lunatic. I know how it sounds. Do you? I snapped. Because so far, you've predicted a ceiling collapse, named my ex, told me about a ring in my closet, and somehow expect me to stay calm while you drip-feed me the worst information possible. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. I'm trying not to scare you. It's a little late for that. That got the first reaction out of her I hadn't heard before. A tiny laugh, soft, tired, real. And somehow that made everything worse, because for 1 second she sounded familiar. Not like someone I knew well, like someone I'd heard years ago in passing. A voice from another room. A song you can almost name but not quite. I stopped pacing. Have we met? No response. Olivia? When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Not the sound of it, the weight of it. Yes. A pressure built behind my eyes. Where? You came to the townhouse twice after the fire, she said. The second time you brought Evelyn paperwork to sign. She asked you to wait in the sunroom. The memory arrived in fragments, dust in the air, burned wallpaper, a clock ticking somewhere, a house too large for one person, and checking a girl. No, a woman. About my age, maybe, sitting in the sunroom with a book in her lap. Dark hair, gray sweater, bare feet tucked under her. She'd looked up once when I walked by. That was it. A glance, maybe 10 seconds. I saw you there, Olivia said. You asked if the piano in the next room still worked. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had asked that, to Evelyn, just making small talk while I waited. Nobody else should remember it. Who are you? I whispered. The answer came so quietly I almost missed it. I'm Evelyn's daughter. I stared into the dark reflection of my own apartment window. That's impossible. Why? Because you just said she disappeared in 1998. Yes. I almost laughed again, but there was no humor left in me. So either you're lying or I'm talking to a ghost. Olivia breathed in, then out. Jake, I never said I was alive. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't speak. Every part of me wanted to hang up, smash the phone, leave the apartment, run until this whole thing felt small behind me. Instead, I asked, "What do you want from me?" Her answer came immediately. I want you to find me. The room went silent. Outside, a siren passed somewhere far away. Inside, I could hear my own pulse. You expect me to believe that a dead woman is calling my phone to help me solve her murder? No, Olivia said. I expect you to believe that someone buried me and they're getting nervous. I lowered myself onto the couch. This was insane, fully insane, and yet none of the sane explanations were holding up. Not the calls, not the warnings, not the photo, not the ring, not the memory she shouldn't have had. So what? Mara stole this ring because she's involved? No, Mara found it by accident. Then why hide it here? Because she was afraid. Your boss. I went still. My boss, Daniel Mercer, had owned the restoration company for 15 years. 52, divorced, polished, always too calm. The kind of man who shook hands like he was evaluating leverage. No, I said immediately. You asked for the townhouse records last year, remember? I blinked. What? You were helping organize archived permits. Mercer saw your name on the request. That's when he started paying attention again. I searched my memory. She was right. Last fall, I'd pulled some old property files while helping the office manager digitize records. Evelyn Cross's address had been one of them. At the time, it had meant nothing. But if Mercer had noticed, why would he care? Olivia's voice turned flat. Because he was there the night I disappeared. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat in the dark with every light off, like somehow that would make me harder to find. The ring stayed on the coffee table, wrapped in a dish towel like it might poison me. By 3 a.m, I'd gone from terrified to furious. Maybe that's what Olivia wanted. Maybe she knew fear alone would make me freeze. Anger makes you move. At 3:17, the phone rang again. This time, I answered before the first full ring. What do I do? No greeting, no hesitation, just the truth. Olivia seemed to notice. You believe me now. I believe something. That's as far as I'm willing to go. That tiny, tired laugh again. Fair. I rubbed my eyes. Tell me everything. Not everything, she said. Not yet. Why not? Because if I tell you too much too fast, you'll make the same mistake I did. That landed harder than I expected. I leaned back into the couch. Start somewhere. So she did. She told me Evelyn Cross had spent years pretending her daughter ran away. Private schools, rehab rumors, family instability, anything to keep police from looking too closely. Money made things easy back then. Influence made them easier. But Olivia hadn't run away. She'd found something inside the townhouse. Papers, ledger pages, names, payments, property transfers hidden through shell companies. Her mother's money tied to other people's crimes. One name kept appearing, Daniel Mercer. Back then, he'd been younger, hungry, not yet successful, but already useful to the right people. Evelyn was protecting him? I asked. Not just him, Olivia said. Herself, others, men who used restoration contracts to move things, hide things. Hide what? A pause. People, sometimes. That sentence hollowed me out. I sat there gripping the phone so tight my hand hurt. This is insane. Yes. And you want me to go to the police with what? A ghost call and a ring? No, I want you to find the room. I frowned. What room? The one below the townhouse. I was quiet for a second. There's no room below the townhouse. There is, she said. You walked past the door twice. The memory flickered again. Basement stairs, old service corridor, locked panel near the furnace room. I'd never thought twice about it. It was sealed after the film, she continued. But not before Mercer went back. For what? For me. The words hit like a drop into deep water. I stood and started pacing again. If this is true, if any of this is true, why call me? Why not someone else? Because you were kind to me. I stopped. What? In the sunroom. When my mother left us alone, you talking at me like I was a person, not a problem, not a secret, just a person. My throat tightened unexpectedly. I bet she did, or something wearing her memory did. I asked if you okay, I said slowly. Yes. I remembered now, the 4 today, the bruised look under her eyes, the way she smiled what you're what to say. I hint to the work and the end of it, except, "Why now?" I asked. "Why wait all this time?" And she said, "You do." Instead, why now weary of her time? I get to a specially town, and if then, doesn't look ofted. Why now I get to, why you find all this time? Why now? Why wait all this time? I went together, if you want together, but what we do it, why now it isn't said. I didn't wait. The line crackle, her cold red with who? No, Olivia. When people get close, can that the meant? You said, check your front door. I turned. There was an envelope on the floor inside the apartment. I swear to God it had not been there a second earlier. I walked slowly, every nerve lit up. Plain with understamp, no life. Inside was a single photograph. This one showed me earlier that day at the job site on Mercer Street, standing under the damaged ceiling. And written across the bottom in black marker were 4 words, "Stop digging or bleed." "No," she whispered. That was the first moment I heard fear in her voice. Real fear. Not for herself, for me. "You need to leave," she said. "Now, take the ring, drive somewhere public." "What about the townhouse?" "Tomorrow." "What if Mercer, he already knows you found it?" "How?" "Because Mara told him." I shut my eyes. Of course she did. Of course she did. Why would she do that? Because she thinks Mercer can protect her. I grabbed my keys. "Can he?" A long silence. Then Olivia said, very softly, "He couldn't protect me." That was when someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks, not loud, not rushed, like whoever was outside already knew I was in there. And then a man's voice came through the wood. "Jake, it's Daniel. You okay in there?" I didn't breathe. Mercer's voice was smooth as ever, calm, concerned. The exact voice a guilty man would use if he had years of practice pretending not to be one. "Don't answer," Olivia whispered. Another knock. "Jake, I saw your car downstairs. Thought I'd check in after what happened today." He was lying. He had never once checked in on me outside work, not once. I backed away from the door, grabbing the ring and shoving it into my pocket. "Your fire escape," Olivia said. "Bedroom window. Go." I moved. Mercer knocked again, harder now. "You there?" I slid into my bedroom, hands clumsy, heart hammering. The window stuck halfway, then finally gave with a sharp squeal that sounded loud enough to wake the whole building. "Jake?" Mercer called. And this time, the warmth was gone. I climbed out onto the metal fire escape just as I heard the lock rattle. He had a key. That thought almost made me miss the first step. I moved down fast, bare hands slipping on cold metal. By the time I hit the alley, I heard my apartment door open above me. No shout, no chase. That somehow scared me more. I cut through the back lot and kept moving until I reached a diner on 11th that stayed open all night. Bright windows, neon sign, 2 truckers inside and a waitress filling sugar jars. I took a booth in the back and kept looking at the door. My phone was still in my hand. "Still there?" I whispered. "Yes." For a second, I just listened to her breathing. Strange how comforting that had become. a woman who might be dead, a voice that appeared from nowhere, and somehow she was the only thing keeping me steady. "What now?" "You wait until sunrise," Olivia said. "Then you go to the townhouse." "Was what? A crowbar?" "There's a side entry through the old carriage gate. The code lock was replaced last year." "How do you know that?" "I listen." That answer should have unsettled me. Instead, I just nodded to nobody. The waitress brought coffee, I discovering ordering it. "Mercer won't go there in daylight," Olivia continued. "He'll assume you'll run first. And if I don't? Then you might find what he buried." Her word. I lowered mine. "Olivia, if this is real, if you're real, why can only I hear you?" She was quiet a long time. Then, "I don't know if only you can." That answer sat heavy between us. "Others got calls?" "Yes." "What happened to them?" Another long silence. When she finally spoke, her voice had turned distant again. "They stopped answering." By morning, I was running on coffee, adrenaline, and the kind of fear that feels almost clean, like there's no room left for anything else. At 6:42, I whiffed to the old cross townhouse, the tall, narrow windows, black ironed fence, one side still discolored from the old fire, a discovery with too much history. The carriage gate was around back, exactly where Olivia said. The keypad was newer than the surrounding brick, cheap replacement model. "Try 0417, she said. I did. The lock clicked. I stared at it. "What is that date?" Olivia didn't answer. Inside, the air smelled with damp wood and city, plastic sheeting, that still old buildings have, where everything look down the fount. The name of this long time to the 22nd Vone, but it knotted still into debt, even who is older and said. That said I did never find it, where deeping in lock. Now, I wanted to tell Din. "I know. The call doesn't said whatever looks along. I hate too that I was near the way. De wait about the call doesn't said I was on the time. Now, what it is the long time. What is that date?" I stared at it. The other way was going to create the long. I looked to no fold and explain. Then I'm more down. I whisk them today. The call doesn't said even fine a law. They said 2-1 for self near. I tick. It wasn't what is that date? What is that date? Knoweth no people. Invive slipped through the back hall toward the back's education. "Left at the furnace room," Olivia whispered. "Then count 7 paces." I did. There was a wall there, plain plaster over old brick, no door. "No," I muttered, "there's nothing here." "There is." I knocked, solid, then with hollow. A chill ran through me. I scanned the wall, fingers running over the surface until I found a hairline seam hidden under peeling paint. Paneling, sealed shut. "Mercer renovated over it," Olivia said, "after the fire." I found an old pry bar near a shelf of paint cans and jammed it into the seam. It took 3 tries, then the panel groaned open 6 inches, releasing a smell so stale and wrong I staggered back. Not rot, not exactly. Closed air, wet stone, old earth led down into blackness. "Jake," Olivia said, and for the first time since all this started, her voice trembled. "Don't go down alone." I stopped on the top step. "What?" You need proof, not bravery. Take pictures. If you see anything, leave. Something in her tone made me understand. She already knew what was down there, and she didn't want me to see it the way she had. I raised the phone light and descended. The room below was smaller than I expected. Low ceiling, stone walls, dirt floor in one section, shelves on the far side, a rusted chair, old pipes, and in the center of the room was a shallow patch of disturbed earth. My heart slammed against my ribs. No, 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 no. I stepped closer. There was fabric visible beneath the soil, faded gray, a sweater. Sudden realization hit me so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The sunroom, the gray sweater, Olivia. That's when footsteps sounded above me, heavy, fast, someone entering the house, and a voice I recognized instantly shouting my name. Jake! Mercer had found me. Everything after that happened too fast. I snapped 3 photos of the disturbed ground and turned for the stairs. Mercer was already in the furnace room above, ripping the panel wider with both hands. He looked different now. Older somehow, more desperate. No polished boss smile, no office calm, just panic. Jake, stop! I backed deeper into the hidden room. He came halfway down the stairs and froze when he saw where I was standing. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then he looked at the disturbed patch of earth, and I saw it on his face. Recognition, guilt, memory. It was real. Listen to me, he said, voice shaking now. Whatever you think this is. It's her, I said. His expression broke, not into honesty, into anger. Mara told me you found the ring, he snapped. I tried to handle this quietly. You mean like last time? His jaw tightened. You don't understand what happened. I laughed once, harsh and empty. Then explain. He took another step down. She wasn't supposed to be there that night. She lived here. You don't know anything. His voice echoed off the stone. Her mother owed people money, dangerous people. Olivia had copies of records she shouldn't have had. She threatened to go public. I held up the phone, camera still recording now. Good, keep talking. His eyes flicked to it, and that was when I knew he was deciding whether to kill me. The realization came cold and perfect. Not maybe, not possibly. He was deciding. Jake, Olivia whispered in my ear, suddenly so clear it felt like she was standing beside me. Left wall. I glanced. There was a narrow opening behind a stack of shelves. A second exit maybe, or old drainage tunnel. Mercer saw my eyes move and lunged. I ran. He caught my jacket, tearing it clean off my shoulder, but I slipped through the gap and slammed into a cramped stone passage, barely wide enough to move through. Behind me, Mercer cursed and shoved after me. The tunnel angled upward. Dirt rained from the ceiling. My phone light shook wildly across old brick and roots pushing through mortar. Keep going, Olivia said. You're close. How do you know this place? No answer. I rounded a bend and saw daylight ahead through broken boards. I hit them shoulder first and burst out into the overgrown side garden of the townhouse. Fresh air slammed into my lungs. I ran for the street. Mercer came out seconds later behind me, shouting. Not words at first, just rage. I made it to the sidewalk and turned, phone up, recording him in full daylight. He stopped. Cars were passing. A dog walker had turned to stare. A cyclist slowed. Mercer's face changed instantly. The mask came back on. He straightened his coat and actually tried to smile. "Jake," he called, breathing hard. "You're not well." I kept backing away. "Stay away from me." The dog walker was fully watching now. So Mercer did what men like him always do when they lose control in public. He retreated. Not because he was innocent, because witnesses existed. He stepped back toward the gate. "You have no idea what you're involved in." Then he was gone. I stood in the street shaking so hard I had to sit on the curb. On the phone, Olivia was quiet. For so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her, very faintly. "You found me." I looked back at the townhouse, at the hidden room beneath it, at the life that had been sealed underground, while everyone above kept eating dinner and signing contracts and moving on. And I felt something crack open inside me. Not fear, not even grief. Rage. "What happened that night?" I asked. This time she answered. "He came alone first," she said. "Mercer. He wanted the papers. He said he could fix everything if I just gave them to him," pulling her apart as she spoke. I told him no. We argued. My mother came downstairs. She was crying. She kept saying we had to be practical. That word. Practical. I shut my eyes. He grabbed my arm. I fought him. I fell. She paused. I hit the chair, then the floor. After that, I remember my mother screaming. I remember Mercer saying it was an accident. My stomach twisted. And then? A long, awful silence. Then they buried me before sunrise. I couldn't speak. Cars moved past. Normal morning noise. A city continuing like nothing had happened. "How are you talking to me?" I finally whispered. "I don't know." "Why me?" "Because you came back." I frowned. "What?" "The records last year. You touched the old file. You said my name out loud in the archive room." I tried to remember. Maybe I had. Maybe seeing the old address had stirred something. "Sometimes," Olivia said softly, "the dead don't need much, just to be remembered." I swallowed hard. Police sirens sounded in the distance. I hadn't called them, which meant someone else had. And then Olivia said the one thing I still can't explain. "Jake," she whispered, voice fading, "when they open the ground, don't let them tell you I was alone." The police found the room exactly where I said it was. They found the disturbed earth, the sweater, the remains underneath. They found enough to turn a buried rumor into a homicide investigation before noon. They also found something else. 3 feet from Olivia's body, beneath a collapsed section of old shelving, were bones from a second person. Smaller, older, fragmented. Forensics later said they'd likely been there decades longer. Nobody knew who they were, not at first. Mercer was arrested that evening trying to leave the state. Mara was picked up 2 days later. She swore she never knew about the body, swore she only found the ring when Mercer asked her to clean out a storage unit tied to the old townhouse records. Maybe that part was true, maybe not. My video from the tunnel, the photos, the hidden room, Mercer's lies, the old financial records they finally dug up after a warrant. It all started unraveling fast, and at the center of it was Olivia Cross, missing since 1998, found because a voice called me in the dark. That should be where the story ends. It isn't, because 3 nights after the arrest, after the police had searched my apartment and taken statements and finally stopped looking at me like I was either insane or useful, I got another call. Blocked number, 2:13 a.m., same time as the first call. I stared at it until the screen almost went black. Then I answered. Olivia? There was breathing, soft, unsteady. But when the voice came, it wasn't hers. It was a child's. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, speaking so quietly I had to hold the phone tight against my ear. "Is she with you?" the girl asked. Every hair on my body stood up. "What?" "Olivia," the child whispered. "Is she with you now?" My mouth had gone dry. "Who is this?" No answer. Then, very softly, she said, "It's cold where I am." The line crackled, and behind her, for just a second, I heard Olivia's voice. Not scared, not angry, just distant, like she was speaking from the far end of a tunnel. "Jake," she said, "don't let them close it again." The call ended. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went back to the case detective and told him everything, including the second set of remains and the call. He didn't believe the call part, the remains were real, so he listened to the part that mattered. Weeks passed, then months. The second body was finally identified through old dental records. A girl named Nora Vale, 9 years old, reported missing in 1976. Her family had lived 2 streets over from the townhouse, and according to archived witness notes nobody had looked at in 50 years, the last person seen talking to Nora was Evelyn Cross. Not Mercer, Evelyn. That changed everything. It meant Olivia hadn't just been buried with a secret, she'd been buried on top of one. And suddenly the whole story looked different. Not cleaner. Worse, because maybe Olivia found the records. Maybe she found proof her mother had been protecting men like Mercer. Or maybe she found something even darker. Maybe she found out what her mother really was. The police reopened old disappearances tied to Cross family properties. More names surfaced. 2 more last I heard. Maybe there will be more after that. Maybe Mercer was a monster. Maybe Evelyn was worse. And maybe Olivia had spent whatever came after death trying to drag at least one truth back into the light before the rest disappeared with her. I still get calls sometimes, not every night, not even every month. Sometimes there's nothing but static, sometimes breathing. Once, I heard piano music, slow, broken, like someone playing with 2 fingers in another room. And once, just once, I heard Olivia clearly. No fear in her voice this time, no urgency, just that same calm whisper from the first night. "Thank you for answering." I said her name 3 times. The line stayed open. Then I heard a second voice, far behind hers, a little girl laughing, and the call ended. I moved out of that apartment, changed my number, changed jobs, started sleeping with a lamp on for a while, which is not something I admit out loud much. But none of that matters, because sometimes, when the city goes quiet and the dark in my room feels a little too full, I still wake up a few seconds before the phone rings, as if some part of me recognizes her before the sound does. And every time, I ask myself the same question. If Olivia could call once she was found, then who was calling before that? And if the dead only need to be remembered, how many others are still waiting for someone to answer?